Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight for this session on tips for the young professional. My name is Jody Hammer, and I am the Career Services Specialist here at NPCA's Global Reentry Program, and I'm excited to be here with you tonight talking about this topic and giving some advice based on my own experience and research and such. And tonight we are extra lucky because we have a very special guest with us who's able to be here for a few moments on the front end, maybe I think 10 or 15. Is that right, Greg?
Yes,
We're
yeah,
really
that's fine. That'll be good.
wonderful. Thank you so much. So this is a special cameo appearance that was just added here at the last minute, and you're very fortunate. I've had the privilege of visiting with Greg in the past, and as a heads up, you're going to probably have another opportunity because we are trying to fit him in for one of our podcasts and specifically dedicated to this concept of the young professional. And Greg is, in addition to being a retired ambassador, he's a career foreign service officer. He was a Peace Corps country director, which many of you oftentimes aspire to be. And just as importantly, he's been a mentor to so many. And I'm going to let him introduce the way that he kind of came into this whole having this big portfolio of basically advice for the young professional, because it's very interesting. I'd love for you to describe that and then share any of your tips before you have to run. So thank you, Greg, for being here.
Yeah, thanks, Jody, for inviting me. Can you all hear me well enough?
I sounds good on my end.
Okay, great. Yeah, I never know. I've got it's a couple ways to set this thing up. Um, so yeah, in terms of this topic, advice for young professionals or new professionals, um, a lot of it goes back to sort of an ethos that everybody can be a mentor to someone. So, I mean, a first grader could be a mentor to a kindergartner.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone can sort of look back and say, well, I've been through an experience. Maybe that experience can help other people. And as I went through my career, um, that was kind of one of the driving features to try to mentor young foreign service officers and other people who are coming through, people who are new to jobs. And so when my kids are both adults, but when my son was taking his first professional job coming out of Virginia Tech with a degree in computer science, I thought, well, let's go to lunch and I'll just share some ideas with you uh, about being in a job and what people might expect and appropriate behavior and behavior that might be maybe more problematic.
Mm-hmm.
And so we said, yeah, sure, we'll get together in a couple of days. And in the meantime, I little little scrap of paper, and I thought, well, I'll mention this, and I'll mention this, and I'll mention this, and pretty soon I'm on the back of the scrap with a whole bunch of bullet points. And I thought, well, this is crazy. We're in the 21st century. I'll just make a list on my computer.
Mm-hmm.
And by the time I was done with that, it ran to 5 pages, which surprised
Wow.
me. And so my son and I, went over what those points were. And I don't know if you all have the that document.
They do
Um,
not. I have
it's
not shared it without your permission, so
pardon.
I did not share it yet at all
Oh,
without your permission as we were talking.
yeah. I mean, I think it's useful to see it. It when I look at the individual, I had it pulled up, but now I can't find it. When I look at the individual points that I make, that's a song.
Greg, is it okay if we do share that with them afterwards? Because I do send a follow up to this that includes like helpful links.
I,
And if you are okay with that, I'm happy to do that. I just wanted to respect your, I didn't
sure,
want to do it without your permission.
that would be great. So I'll just hit reply to all, assuming that not everybody's BCC'd, and attach it to that document.
We actually do a follow up where we send it to everybody. So
Okay.
if we just have the document, I can attach that, or if it's a link somewhere that it's, online where it's just a link that you want to,
Yeah.
share, whatever is fine. We can do that on our end.
Okay. Good. I'll
Right.
sort that out.
Great.
But
Thank
anyway,
you.
if the list goes from kind of when you first get there to working all of the time, and it's really derived from my own experience, either being new myself in a job or supervising a lot of new foreign service officers, a lot of new graduate students. I did teach a course at the University of Texas Austin
Uh-huh.
called Managing Overseas Operations. So my students always got this document, and we talked our way through it a little bit. But
Great.
it, when I look at the points, I try to try to emphasize that none of the points is particularly profound. It's just that they're all assembled in the same place. Uh, and so I think as a document, it can be useful that way. But the first point, and it's not a coincidence that it's the first point, is there are no problems, only solutions. Or bring
Mm,
solutions, don't bring problems. Uh, that's what your boss will expect and appreciate. So don't just say, "Hey, we've got a problem." Boom! I just put it on your desk. Some people call that monkey on your back. Um, but bring solutions. Think about solutions.
sure.
Um, this I'm not going to go through all of these, but the second one I think is kind of a fun one. Is take your work seriously, but don't take yourself seriously. People who
Mm,
take themselves too seriously are a pain in the neck to work with. Um, so yeah, take your work seriously, but also understand everybody's human, so we're all trying to do our best. Um, so it's
sure.
a range of advice like this, and when you get the document, I hope you'll find it useful. I worked at the UT International office for a while, and my colleagues, the directors of certain divisions, saw the thing and they said, "Oh, can we share this with people in our sections, our
Mm-hmm.
employees?" And who were already kind of mid-level. And I said, "Yeah, that'd be great." And
Sure.
they did that. And over time, I've had a lot of people that I shared it with come back and say, "Wow, that was really useful. I never thought of this or I never thought of that." But
Mm-hmm.
the point is, when you when you read the stuff and you absorb it and you start to live by it, you you remove hurdles that you might trip over, and the point in your job is to be as low maintenance as possible, high productivity, low maintenance. So I think a lot of
Right.
these points help you to be low maintenance. Um, I'm trying to think, like I said, without going through them. Uh, it's kind of hard to make sense of it. Some of them, like they're really so simple, like carry a pen and a piece of paper.
Yeah.
So, when I was ambassador to Togo, I'd have officers come into my office and say, "Oh, here's this issue. I've thought we could do this or that." And I'll say, "Okay, well, consider this and consider that." And I'd list off a couple of points, and the person would be standing there shuffling and looking at my desk saying, "Do you have a piece of paper?" That's
Right.
stupid. I mean, whatever. That's
Right.
just not something you want to do because you look unprepared.
And
Um,
Greg, do you agree that the phone is not a replacement because some people will do their like phone and they're just doing the texting and I know they're really fast, but to me it comes across as inconsiderate. It's like they're checking their phone. So I don't feel like that's a replacement for the paper and pen, like just bringing that in instead and taking notes on the phone doesn't really go over always as well. Maybe with your same generation, but I don't know.
yeah, it doesn't. I mean, at the senior levels of the Foreign Service, it doesn't go over well. And number
Right.
one, if you work within the core of the embassy, you can't even bring your phone in there
Ah, yes.
for security
Okay.
reasons. Once you're on your phone, people start wondering what you're doing, even though
Uh-huh.
they should know that you're just typing in notes. I keep notes on my phone too. There's
But they
just a
might
whole
think that you're
lot that a
checking
phone
your
does. And
profile.
so if you're writing, with a pen on a piece of paper, uh, it's
Hmm.
pretty clear what you're doing. So I would say, sort of, if you want to err on the side of caution, go with the notepad and the pen. And it's really useful. I used to carry just one of those little spiral notebooks, and I could go back to things, and that was helpful too.
Yeah,
But again, that's that kind of stuff. It seems so obvious, but then it's not to people. People
right.
forget. attending meetings, like being on time to meetings. It's not just,
Right.
so I'm not good with time. It's like, oops, yeah, that's a big oops. Be on time to meetings, especially important meetings with senior people in your organization.
Right.
When I was a first tour officer in Islamabad, Pakistan, the ambassador was pretty much a heavyweight. He'd been ambassador to four other countries, and he held his country team meetings. And he said at the first time he got there, he said, "You will be on time to my meetings.
Hmm.
If you're not on time, don't come in the room." So, uh, be on time. Don't draw attention to yourself.
Right.
Um, I'm trying to think of other things I could say about that, or say about sort of these points. But again, like
Sure.
go over them. I do think that they're very useful stuff. Here's another one is in terms of being low maintenance. Sometimes people say things and you don't know the organization culture very well or the person very well, and they don't really quite mean what they say. So the example I use is someone just gets to post, a first tour officer, and makes a courtesy call on the ambassador, and the ambassador says, "Hey, Jody, we're so glad to have you here, and
Right.
the door is always open. If you have any issues, you have any problems, you come to me. My door is open." So when Jody's there the next day and the day after that, I look at my deputy, and the look on our faces is, which part of my door is always open? Didn't she understand? I mean, don't, make an appointment, whatever it is. So you need to learn your organization's culture. And cultures are very different. I was a Peace Corps volunteer in South Korea, and you know what the volunteer thing is like. Not much
Yeah.
structure, certainly even less organization usually. Um, and then I went into the Foreign Service, very different organization, really hard to get into. Uh, very organized the way a large government bureaucracy would be. But I had to learn that organization as quickly as I could. And unlike the military is really good at training every single person who comes in the culture of the organization, the culture of their particular unit, or whatever. And
Uh-huh.
the State Department doesn't do anything like that. The State Department basically feels like, well, heck, if you got through these tests, this tough testing battery, then you're kind of plug and play software for us. We shouldn't have to
Hmm.
teach you a lot of stuff. And so they don't really teach you anything about the culture. You've got to pick that up on your own, pick that up through peers, and
Yeah.
just learn your way along. But you have to learn, because just because the organization doesn't define a culture doesn't mean it doesn't have a culture. It
Right.
doesn't
There's
mean that,
always a culture.
yeah, that people notice when you're not kind of in accordance with the culture. They do notice. When I went back to Peace Corps to be the country director in Ethiopia, that was a strange experience, because I'd come from, not directly, but I'd come from the State Department, and Peace Corps in Washington staff is I jokingly used to say they make the State Department, which is considered one of the least organized federal departments, they made us look like the Marine Corps. Um, it was pretty loosey goosey. Um, so again, you've got to learn, you've got to live by it. Um, the other thing is, can I shift a little bit, Jody,
Sure,
to
absolutely. If you have
applying
time,
for jobs and
absolutely.
all? So when you come out of Peace Corps, you might not have a lot of work experience other than maybe your Peace Corps assignment. Well, if that's what you've got, use it. Uh,
Yep.
for lack of a better term, but that's really what it is. Use it in selling yourself.
Hmm.
Already having thought in advance. So how would this be applicable to what I'm applying for? And then use it. And be sort of
Exactly.
unabashed about it. You don't have to be embarrassed about maybe not having the professional experience that you
Yeah.
think the organization wants.
I'll be covering that actually in part of mine after. I know you need to at some point leave, and but that's a very important part. You emphasize the transferable skills, and you get great transferable skills in Peace Corps,
Mhm.
right?
Well, and I know from being on a whole lot of hiring committees, both for the State Department at different levels. I was on the graduate admissions committee for UT's LBJ School of Public
Mm-hmm.
Affairs, and for a variety of things, for grant programs and all that. And for me, but perhaps because I was a Peace Corps volunteer, that's kind of a gold card. If you have Peace Corps experience, for me, that pops up as something unique and different. And so generally, if I'm doing a first cut of like a pile of 100 applications and I see someone's been in the Peace Corps, I put that application aside. That makes the first cut. I'm going to look more closely, in the second review, but it's
Right.
something different. And so you really have to think about how you portray that. You really have to have, what they call the 30-second elevator soundbite or talk ready to explain, what it meant to you, what you might have learned, and how
Sure.
you can, and this is a really important point, how you can bring that to the organization, and how you can contribute. Because in
Yep.
the end, uh, in hiring committees, what they want to know is what are you going to do for us? So typically, in all the hundreds of applications that I've seen with cover letters, 99% of them want to spend a lot of time talking about how passionate they are
Mm-hmm.
about the particular area or job they're applying for. This is their lifelong passion.
Yeah.
And Dan Baker's heard me really rail against this inclination. But now, when you said, "Hey, you're passionate about this and that," you do two things. First, you put yourself in the 99% of people who are
Yeah.
unremarkable, for that reason anyway. And then, second, you raise the question, my cynical question is, I actually don't care what you're passionate about. What are you going to do for us?
Right. How are you going to help us?
Pardon?
How are you going to help us? Why
Yeah,
do
how
you
are you
want
going to
this
help
position?
us?
Yeah.
Exactly. That's what they want to know.
Yeah.
So, as far as I'm concerned, like, I don't say throw the passion thing away, but
Yeah.
it's passion, passionate, any derivative of passion, take it
Yeah.
out of your cover letter. Uh, that will set you apart, and talk about what you're going to bring to the organization. Um,
Right.
and sort of that's my hiring shtick. And
Yeah.
then hopping, now you're in. We cover the whole advice thing, and you're
Right.
motoring along in your career. You've got a strategic question to consider. Like, wow, this is great. I like this organization. I like the people I'm working with. Things seem to be
Right.
going well. Where do I want to be? Blah, blah, blah. And
Yeah.
people will talk to you, about strategic planning, whether it's your career or something else. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, strategic planning kind of goes the way of the word passion. It's You don't want to get too far ahead of yourself. Uh, you know, Basically, my guidance has always been do the best job you can possibly do in the job that you're in, and maybe think ahead to your next assignment or the one after that. Full stop. Then don't go 5 years, 10 years down the line, because things are going to change. Stuff's going to come up, and I don't see how it helps you to do that. So do the best you can now. Think about your next couple of jobs on the way out.
Right.
When I got into the Foreign Service, they bring you in and they call them classes of people, and I came in with 30 people. And one of the first sessions we had, they kind of went around and you gave your name and why do you want to come into the Foreign Service and what did you hope to accomplish. And out of these 30 people, about 5 to 10 people said, well, they want to be an ambassador. At the time, I thought that's really strange to me. Um, that your goal would be, I'm going to come in and then I'm going to be an ambassador. Maybe you are, maybe you're not. That's a total crapshoot. But why are you thinking that far ahead? And so, I'd say in terms of your career strategic planning, always be assessing whether you really do enjoy, and enjoy is the key word, the job you're in, that you feel like you're accomplishing something, that you feel like you can contribute, that you've got the potential to keep contributing to the organization, and then just figure out where you want to apply that potential over the next few years. Um,
Sure, Greg, that is such a good point, and I think you have so much good information to share with us. I just want to reiterate, I think we were talking about maybe doing a podcast, right? And just working out the time we could do it,
Right.
featuring you as the guest, where maybe we can continue this great, dialogue and get much deeper into it as well. I want to respect I know you have another commitment that you were going off to as well. And I'll pick up after here. But let's touch base and figure out when we can do that podcast, and then I'll let everyone know on this as well, so that we can continue, because this is such great information. I appreciate you sharing it, and thanks for being here.
Yeah, fantastic. I look forward to doing that because, management and these sorts of questions are so important. Uh, and again, to the extent that I can offer some advice or some insights that actually help people,
Sure.
that means a lot to me. It really does. I
Wonderful.
guess I'll leave the meeting now if that's okay.
Yes, absolutely. Just go ahead and leave the meeting. That's absolutely fine. But we look forward to hosting you for a podcast. Maybe we can do February sometime. We'll figure it out, and we'll hear more of your great tips. So thank you so much for being with us, and you have a great evening.
Fantastic. Maybe you can help me before I go here. If I've got an area for improvement, it's got to be technology. When I brought up that advice document,
Uh-huh.
my my Zoom screen narrowed down just to the column that has those in attendance, and so I can't see the rest of that big screen that allows me to leave the meeting. Does someone know how to get back to that?
Dan, can you maybe shoot that to him in the chat box, and then I'll go ahead and start with the other. Does that sound okay? I think Dan's still here. Is that right? Yes, and I'm going to make you, yes, I will make you a co-host right now.
Oops.
Here, just a second here.
Okay. Well, I'm not sure how to get
Yep,
back.
no problem, no problem. He'll help you out with that. If you have the picture, like you don't see the picture of like you talking or whoever, right?
Right.
Okay, yeah,
I'm
he'll
on
help
it.
you with that.
I'm on it. And I'll just say thank you very much, Greg. It's always a pleasure talking to you, and to everyone listening. While you're on YouTube, checking out our Global Reentry playlist, search for Greg Ingles' musical appearances as well.
That's
Yes, I
great.
heard about that and haven't checked it out yet, Greg, but I look forward to doing so.
Well, I hope you enjoy it. That's a
All
lot of fun
right.
for me. It's a lot of
Award
fun.
winning. I love
Okay,
it.
I'm going
All
to
right.
leave the meeting. You might all still be hanging there, but
All right. Thanks, Greg.
sure.
All right.
Bye.
So, folks, we're going to go ahead and move on. Thank you again, Greg. That was great. And I look forward to we'll do a podcast with him in the near future. So let's go ahead and talk a little bit about first defining the young professional. And I wanted to ask you, how would you define the young professional? What age is it? How much experience? I mean, there's a lot of different interpretations, obviously, but what do you think of when you define the young professional? What's your thought? And if you can just drop it in the chat box, I do have that open, and should be able to see your responses coming in. So let me know if you do put something in there. Let's see. All right. Yep, go ahead and drop it in there if you think of, there's a certain amount of experience or whatnot. And as I said, you're going to get different answers from different sources. I I see from the Wikipedia defines it as oftentimes, there are a couple different ways, right? But somebody who has a few years, of experience after, maybe college or graduate school or whatever, where they're a newer professional coming out of education. Others will say people, a young professional, right? Instead of new professional. When you say young professional, it oftentimes people associate it with age. And whereas really, as Ashley is saying in the chat box, it's really more like an early to mid career, right? I oftentimes think of, the young professional or the new professional as maybe, maybe it's within, the first 5 to 10 years of, being out. Some people will say, oh, it's your 20s and into your 30s, is your young professional, day. Now, don't worry if you are beyond that or whatnot. Don't hang up now. Don't leave because you are older than that. There's actually a lot of what we're going to say is very applicable to everyone. But I think there's many tips that it's especially applicable for the young professional that we're going to cover here today. So let's go ahead and look at, I guess we'll look at what are some of the tips for the young professional. in the job search. Now, I've actually broken this down into 3 categories. So there's the tips for the young professional is the overriding, that's all of it, right? So job search, newly hired, like when you're getting into a job, right? And then looking to, professional development and looking to what's next or looking beyond, moving up. Okay. So I have 3 categories that we're going to really cover. So I want to just start with, I have several that are listed here, job search tips for young professionals. And I'm just going to talk a little bit about these. And I definitely want to invite you to weigh in if you have additional tips, because there are so many tips, right, that are out there. And this is just my taking some of kind of what I think are maybe the essential ones and the best of the best or what have you. Greg will surely share a lot more in his podcast, perhaps in February. But the first couple really they have to do with like a resume writing, right? So one of the biggest mistakes that I see people do for young professionals is putting their education first, right up front. So and the reason I don't like that is because it screams new grad, no experience. And if you're a new grad with limited experience, right? If you've done Peace Corps, which you all have, right? For the most part here, so you have experience too. But if you are a new grad and you have limited or no experience, the last thing you want to do is knock them over the head with that fact by putting your education, bachelor's, whatever, and where you got it, whatever. Now, the same is true. I make the case even for masters, but a lot of people are like, well, gosh, I just invested, all this money and whatever in my masters, and I'm not, a young professional, but I want to get it up there right away, my degree. And I am still a fan of not putting your education right up front, but rather keeping it after the professional experience and calling your experience professional experience, not just experience, right? Or work history or work experience. That just doesn't sound as professional. But what you can do is in your very first category, whether you call it key qualifications or summary of qualifications or whatever, in your very first bullet, and I'm a fan of the bullets because they pop more, right? You could put, bilingual professional with MPH and 3 years of specialized experience in da, 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 da. So you get that MPH or MBA or whatever advanced degree you have, right? I would not put with BA, and there's nothing wrong with having, my screen popped off for some reason. So we'll put it back up here. There we go. There's nothing wrong. I mean, it's great you have your bachelor's, but you don't want to throw that up there right on the top, because when you do put that up there, then they're new grad, no experience, that kind of thing, right? Same thing with your education category. I always recommend that you have 2 entries, even as a young professional just coming out of your bachelor's. And you all are lucky because you could have, if you don't have some sort of maybe second degree, maybe you got your associate's degree somewhere, or maybe you went on a study abroad program, or something like that, any other educational experience, you would list those as 2 educational experiences. Why? Because when the person who's reviewing your resume is scanning through it and giving it that 6 to 9 second glance, right, to see what you have and to make that decision of whether you go into that to be considered further category, right? When they see two listed items, guess what they assume? And this is myself. I'm the one who gives this advice. And I have this happen all the time when I'm scanning really fast and I see 2 entries. What am I going to assume? I'm going to assume an advanced degree, your bachelor's and another, because nobody puts, or you shouldn't put your high school, right? You just put your bachelor's and then anything that's above that, right? So those are a couple tips with trying to help you get through and be more competitive with people who have a little more experience, right? Because sometimes it can be a negative. It can be an obstacle to overcome, not having enough experience, right? But the truth of the matter is you all are resourceful and you've proven your transferable skills. So we're going to talk about those in a moment. But I do want to make the point as well, another advantage that you bring really, and something that's over people who are like your mid-career or seasoned professionals, you are, as digital natives, you need to leverage your tech skills, right? Your different programs that that can be so impressive, right? Include those in your resume, because those are the kind of people that they want to bring onto the team as well. It's like, yeah, we have the ideas and all this kind of stuff as well, but we need people that not only have ideas, but have this tech ability to put it into whatever we need to do. So definitely incorporate those kinds of things as well. Okay. And then with your lack of related experience, like I said, emphasize, as Greg said, your transferable skills, your other, your experience, with Peace Corps and just doing, being able to really be, innovative and those kinds of things. Right. So that can go a long way, right? They can train you. Honestly, they can train you more often than not. The employer can train you on the subject matter. They can't train you on being resourceful and resilient and having strong interpersonal or cultural, cross-cultural experiences, things like that, right? And skills. So those are the kind of things that they really are looking for as well, and that can help you get ahead in the application. Okay. Networking is key, which I think, hopefully many or most, young professionals recognize, or they know networking is important, right? LinkedIn is your best online networking that you can do, because you can really get a lot of contacts and just connect with people who work at a certain organization to get insight in preparation for maybe an interview, things like that. And the truth of the matter is, networking is a huge percentage of people who are hired are initially referred by an employee that's there, or another person. Like it's a networking type of referral, right? And that means a lot, because people, when they're looking for good people, if there's somebody they respect who's awesome, and they're like, hey, I met this person, they're really good, and they're whatever, and that gets you in the door. It doesn't guarantee you're going to get the job, but it gets you in the door, and then from there you can take it and go from there and convince them that you are the best candidate, and have that shot at doing it. Yeah, it's an expensive process to hire new candidates, right? It's a lot of money they invest in you. So what if it doesn't work out and you leave in a hot minute, right? You're gone in 3 months, 6 months. That can be really really difficult. So also, you want to make meaningful connections in the industry. And this is, I think, Greg did a good job of kind of introducing this as well, right? Getting a mentor. People generally like to mentor, right? They like that people want to come to them for advice, and, they want to, value from, benefit from their experience and such. So that it's not always hard to get a mentor, right? You can oftentimes find people in the organization that, you've joined, or external in the same industry, really tap into them and get their advice, and share when you can challenges that maybe you're facing, that you want you'd love their advice on. How would you handle this kind of situation, all those kinds of things. So and then expressing gratitude, and this is, I put always, because it's not just in this job search stage. It's also when you are in the organization, sending that gratitude, the thank you, that kind of thing, letting the people know that maybe served as your as the people who served as your references, letting them know, thanking them, letting them know you're very appreciative and that you got the job, and all of that, right? And staying in touch is key too, because it also makes it more important or easier in the future to go back to them for a reference again. If you stay in touch, you don't want to just like lose touch altogether, and then 10 years later you're trying to put together a reference, or 5 years later and you're trying to track them down and they haven't talked to you at all yet. So always practice gratitude. I want to ask if there are any other thoughts on tips, that maybe most important tips that you've found from your own experience that maybe we haven't covered, Greg or myself. And while you write those in the chat box, I'm going to answer a question that came in from Lindsay. How do you articulate those transferable skills? Yep, I think in the resume or cover letter, it can actually be in both, but in your resume, absolutely. When sometimes I talk about having skill statements. And a lot of times people think of that like, wrote, it might be like, did whatever, or, organized, implemented, and evaluated, resulting in, and then whatever the outcome is in the end. But you can sometimes flip that around and have a skill statement start with and oftentimes this could be like a transferable skill, right? Demonstrated, resourcefulness and in, and then whatever you did to demonstrate that, right? In being evacuated from, Peace Corps service, you could even, tap into your Peace Corps service evacuation, which honestly is a very good story. And people were really moved by the fact that people, the RPCVs or the Peace Corps volunteers were all evacuated. People want to help in that regard too. So I think work it. It's like, you went through a lot, and it hasn't been an easy road. And so if that is you, you could certainly not in a way where it's like, feel bad for me, I'm so, whatever. You want to be that optimist and that positive. And unfortunately, after months, we were evacuated due to da, 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 and it's been a really good learning experience for me to just, in terms of just being resourceful and pivoting on a dime without being able to go back to my village or say goodbye or have that closure, really moving on. And something that you can really work that into your story, whether it's in your like that would be an example in maybe the interview. You might be talking a little more about transferable skills sometimes in the interview, and they might be asking questions specific to it because more and more are looking for that, right? So yeah, absolutely. Are there any other tips that you're sharing in here? It looks like Maria shared one, where she said, I have always heard that it's important to limit a resume and cover letter to one page each. Would you agree with that? Yes and no, Maria. I would say it depends, which a lot of times that's the answer, right? If you are a new grad with limited experience and you can fit your experience onto one page, by all means, do it. If, however, you maybe have more experience and you go on to that second page, whatever, here's my big pet peeve, or what I don't like to see. I don't like blank space at the end of the resume, because to that, like on that second page, right? So if you have, a page and a quarter of, that's what your resume is, and you have all that blank space on the second page, to me, that screams, there's nothing else about you that makes you important. And that's just not true, right? So what I tell people to do is, if it's a page and a quarter, think about how you might get it down to a page. And that way, if there's something that's not in there that they might want to see in addition, they might say, well, I'll have to ask them about this. They ran out of space, whatever, because you were doing a one-page resume, which that's fine, right? If it's a page and three quarters and you have that blank space, or a page and a half or more, I would work on expanding it so that it takes up the 2 pages, which is pretty easy without too much work. I mean, for one thing, you can make your headers be bigger. You can make your margins be bigger. I mean, not obnoxiously bigger, but you could certainly make them a little bit bigger, and the margin on the top and bottom. You could maybe put an extra blank space between the headers, that kind of thing. So you could work with it pretty easily in that regard, and get it to stretch. Stretching seems to be a little easier than the opposite. So I hope that answers your question. I just think it really depends. And you know what? I don't think it's an age thing. I mean, I came out of undergrad, and this was a long time ago, when I think probably a long time ago, when it was probably more of even a push of that one page, whatever. But I was I had worked since I was 16. I had a lot of, jobs that I'd done, and I worked at the university in the career center and did, some different things and whatever, and had a lot of different experiences and involvement. And I made the decision that, I mean, I'd heard that advice of the, one page, and my mentor at the time, who has been one of my life mentors, and the director of the career services area where I worked, he said, he said, you can't take, one, someone says that's the one all be all. No, it's not. I mean, in your case, you have great experience, you have things, so outline it, have it, and it didn't hurt me at all. So, and that was when I was coming out, and I was, 21. So it just depends on, I think, your experience and your background and what you want to include, right? But there's it just depends. So okay. Please continue to put your questions in the chat box, because I do want to go to get through as many of those as I can. Let's go ahead and go on to the next, which is tips for the young professional when you're starting a job. So starting the job off right, and this is really important. And I think this is where a lot of mistakes are made, especially when you're going, people who are going from, like, maybe an educational kind of environment where you have, whether it's the, sorority, fraternity, or whatever, and, and kind of, and then going into the professional, work. And not that they can't be professional at all. But what I mean is, you have people, it's a different mentality, right? When you start your job, and you want to start it off right. So I want to ask people, in your opinion, before I go into sharing some of the tips that I have, I want to ask, any of you, do you have any tips? Like, what have you learned as a young professional? Whether you're looking back, maybe you're a mid-career professional now and you're participating in this, which is great. You could still get some great advice and you can share some. What are some of the tips that you've heard are important when you start a new job off? What's very important? Throw them in the chat box here. Let's see here. Ask lots of questions. Good one, Scott. Yes, I would agree with that. And I would say, to an extent, you don't want to be the like inquisitor where every question you're an endless ask of questions where they're like, we've got to get some things done. I can't, you know what I mean? So that it can be excessive, but most aren't like that. It's really good to ask lots of questions because that shows that you're interested. It allows you to make sure that you're going to do the job right, instead of doing it wrong and then coming back and saying, oh, I didn't realize. Come back and say, hey, I just want to confirm because I want to make sure that I do this right the first time. Is this maybe confirm what your understanding was, please, please let me know. And I'm, happy to proceed, whatever. So good. Excellent. Guillermo says, even if you are not sure you can do a task, good. Learn how to do it on the job and build more skills. That is such a great one. You want to learn things, right? Hopefully you want growth and development and you just want to learn, increase your skill set, which is what, in that job, you want to make sure that you have a job that you're able to increase your skill set so that it helps you maintain your, your competitiveness. And don't be afraid of taking on new tasks, right? Like that, they have faith in you and, take it on and learn it, right? Like it kind of goes to what Greg was saying about, don't, what was he saying? He was saying like, if you, just do it, come with the solution, not just the problem. Right. And that is so important as well. Not just, oh, here's this problem, but rather to come and say, hey, I've identified this problem or this issue and and here's what I'm thinking would be the best way to solve it. What are your thoughts or how would you like me to proceed? So it's just getting their opinion, but it's showing that you're, willing and able to take it and go from there and do, whatever's needed. Okay. Anyone else just care to weigh in? If you do, that's absolutely fine. You can keep them coming. Maria says, I've heard something like, be the one that can fix the copy machine. Essentially find a way that you can be helpful or the go-to for others in the organization, even for smaller tasks. That's great, Maria. Absolutely. Because that's the person where people are like, oh my gosh, help me. They look at you as like this, more expert, in whatever it is. And it doesn't have to be a high level task, as you said, right? Geez, the copy machines are so frustrating. That's like one of the best things you could be, right? If you can fix that, you make a lot of friends. Wonderful. So that's really good. So I'm going to go ahead and start on my list. Please keep your comments coming. And if there are any additional ones above and beyond what I have here, and we'll go from there. Okay. So dress for success first, which I think is a really important one, right? I would say dress, when I say like professionally, right? The culture of the organization, right? So like in your interview, you are dressing very professionally. Even if it's a more casual place, I would step it up because you don't want to assume like, oh, I'm just going to show them I can fit in and wear my own t-shirt and, whatever. You want to really show that respect and then, they'll usually go over if there is any kind of a dress code or, that kind of thing. You'll hear it in the new employee orientation or in looking around and, seeing and all of that, but start very conservatively. And I would say maintain the professionalism. I remember one of my colleagues at Peace Corps said, I didn't, and she was young, when she started, and she was in a different department, but she said, I just kind of assumed, it was Peace Corps and, this is like, we're all, so it wasn't the first day or anything, certainly, but when she was, working there and she hadn't been there very long, and it was a really nice summer day and she came in these like, longer, but shorts. And not so much, even though it's Peace Corps, it's not necessarily that you wear shorts and whatever. So dress for success, that's key, and just pay attention to what they say, right? Awesome. Be confident and optimistic. Both of those things are really important, right? The confident, even when you don't feel it, like you're going into a new job, you probably have the new job jitters, so like you're worried a little bit, but just It's that they hired you for a reason. They have confidence in you. So you need to have confidence in yourself, right? So even if it means, that morning of that first day and stuff, when you are nervous, you do the super, person, superwoman or superman pose, right? In the bathroom, of course, somewhere where nobody can see you. Um, where you stand up, you spread your legs out, right? Your feet out, hands on the hips, push stand up straight, chest out, and then do, several deep belly breaths, right? Breathing in through your nose and out through your mouth, right? Or your nose, but doing several of those breaths, that's going to hopefully address some of the jitters, but it also should help you just kind of get refocused on, yes, I can do this. This is a really good one to do for an interview, just FYI, just so you know, as well. Okay. So let's go on to an optimistic. Sorry, nobody wants like the negative Nilly or the negative, like everything negative, right? You want to be an optimist, even in the face of difficulty, challenges. Don't let yourself get sucked into the negative energy that might be around the office. And we all know, I mean, the water cooler, and there may be, office politics and groups, and some are disgruntled. And please don't let yourself fall in that trap of like getting sucked into that, because it's not going to help you. It's not going to help the organization, right? Staying optimistic and, confident, and hey, I'm going to do my best. And, whatever the issue is, I'm going to address it. Even when you have challenges, oh, I'm really disappointed to hear that. Let's see what we can do to, how can we learn from this? And how can I learn from this? Maybe you fail in something, which is okay. Don't be the one who blames everyone else. Oh, they did it. He said, she said, that's why I didn't get it done. No, take that, take that responsibility, right? And for, I tried to do this, and this is what I did in this way, and it just didn't work. And I'm here to check, I'm thinking the way for me to, here's what I learned from it, and this is what I'm going to apply. Want to get any tips or advice you might have for me, like just owning it, right? Own the experience, even when it's not a positive one, but then do something, offer, and get it solved. Okay, be a solution. Great. Let's see. I said already, stay out of the office politics, right? Yep. Volunteer for committees. Excuse me. Committees are really important. They're like, you'll have work committees. They'll look for a work group. They'll say, we need to do this, that, or the other. There's some kind, maybe it's like the holiday party committee, or maybe it's, I don't care what it is, right? When you volunteer for those things, it gets you connected with other people and other departments, right? If you're in a bigger organization where you see other divisions, you get known, you work hard on those as well, and then you build more of a reputation, and a good reputation, which can set you up for future promotion, for other kinds of opportunities, right? So it's really important, I think, to volunteer. Now, don't over volunteer where you're so tapped on that you can't do your regular job, but pick the ones that really are meaningful, and sometimes even the ones that are the hard ones, right? That nobody seems to want to do. Step up and say, I'm happy to collaborate with this, and, take the ball and run with it, and, work hard. Maybe you can come up with some unique way to solve, XYZ. Okay. Respecting your time, time in general, your own time, but also that of your colleagues and your coworkers and your bosses. And so what that means is really working hard to be on time for meetings. I know it's hard. I know there's a lot of other things, and that make us all late, and you're maybe not going to be on time always, but really do your best, because that's a show of respect, and it can really serve you well as well, right? And then maintain professionalism. I mean, that seems, I know, very obvious, right? But not just keeping the talk professional, and you might become friends with people, and you become friends with them as well. But I think it's, yeah, just don't delve into that, the total just friend thing, at work, and when you're at work, right? Asking for feedback. This is really important. And asking for feedback is something you don't just want to ask for feedback. Like, you don't want to wait. For example, with your employee, your performance review, right? You don't want to just wait for that and then ask for feedback. You want to actually Ask for feedback in the moment, like when you're doing something, asking for feedback, because it's going to be a lot easier to get feedback, especially constructive feedback or what you may interpret as negative feedback, if you've asked for it, than when they come to you on their own and say, we need to talk, and they give you the negative feedback. If you've asked for it, hey, I really want to get your insight on this. I've done, whatever. If you know you've done a mistake, you made a mistake, then, acknowledge, like I said, whatever. And I'd love your input and suggestions. This is what I'm thinking I can do to, learn from it and go forth, whatever. So doing that. And then master the art of I don't know. And that means not just saying, I don't know, when somebody asks, something, I don't know, right? You can instead say something like, you know, I don't know offhand, but let me see if I can do some research and get back to you, or let me see if I can look that up or figure it out, or be the kind of person that isn't the I don't know, just ask someone else, and rather be that like doer, right? Okay, so I hope that works. Great. Let's move on because we are getting close to the hour and we had some extra minutes with Greg, which was really nice. And I want to make sure that we respect your time and let you go on time as well. So let's move into the third area, which is the tips for the young professional related to professional development, right? And moving up or out. So seek out, as I said, make sure that you seek out the professional development opportunities, right? So internal and external. So there's going to be a lot of, oftentimes in companies, and I have done this myself in the past where I've been so busy and like had such a high client, maybe, ratio that I just didn't have time for the professional development things. And or many of them, where a lot of times organizations will pay a certain amount of money per year. They will fund your professional development up to $1,000 or whatever it is. Take advantage of that. See what's out there. There's so much out there, and there's so many things that can really help you in your professional development, right? For example, I don't know if any of you have the PMP, the program manager professional. Is that what it is? PMP is the acronym. It's a very popular one, right? Very good if you're going into like project development, project, management, all of that. And some companies will actually pay you. It's kind of expensive, right? But you can actually get that funded. So there's lots of other examples. Maybe you can dump some into the chat box if you have some ideas of other ones that might be, good ones that maybe you've done or you've heard of. That can be good as well. It's always great to share with each other, ones that we think of. And I'm working on compiling a document, a compilation of many different, educational and types of professional development. So if you have other ideas, feel free to dump them in the chat box or shoot them to us at careers@peacecorps.gov or me at jody@rpcb.org is also works. So doing that, and then addressing conflict, maintaining a collaborative spirit, just maintaining that like attitude of, hey, I'm willing to work together, let's figure out what we can solve. That's just going to go a long way for you in developing your reputation and your kind of reputation as someone to go to, a go-to person, right? Someone who will help, who can, is confident and competent. But also addressing conflict professionally. So if there is conflict, don't just let it stew, right? If you're sensing that there's conflict, do it in a professional way, obviously without others around. If there's a certain, if there's one person, and maybe approach them and, or even, by email or just in person, just approach them and saying, hey, do you have a few minutes to chat? I'd love to, just connect with you. And then you could even, say as much as, I'm feeling that there might be a little bit of tension, and I just wanted to, address it and talk with you a little bit. Is there something I've done? I certainly, hope not, but can we chat about it a little bit? And just, like addressing that instead of just letting it stew, because otherwise it can sometimes build and then it gets into the whole office politics and all of that. Next, know when it's time to go. And like it or not, you will get into a position that you might really like, and then you get to a point where it's like, I'm not learning anything new, and so if I don't want to do this for the rest of my life, I need to think about what's next. And that can be difficult, right? So knowing when it's time, and when you do go, making sure that you leave good transition documents for whoever comes in, so that they're not trying to like recreate from, thin air and figure out, where did she save this? What is this? That is super important. And then also, saying goodbye, right, to people and really appreciating them, thanking them for the role that they've played, in your life and, in terms of professionally and, how you so appreciate it. And then lastly, and this is really important, stay in touch. If you aren't already connected, get connected on whether it's, LinkedIn or Facebook or whatever your preference is, but stay in touch and, nurture that, because that's somebody that in the future, your paths may cross again. Okay. Great. So that leads me to, really, that's the end of the formalized presentation, right? Or conversation. So I want to give you some final minutes. We have, to ask questions, and then we can go ahead. I can stay on the line for a few minutes extra, obviously, afterwards, but I'll end the recording here pretty soon, right at about at the top of the hour, and let folks who want to go. So what questions do you have for me at this time? Are there any questions that haven't been maybe addressed yet? Let me see. Are you all seeing just the Q&A, I think, right? I don't see any. And you know what? We have a small enough crew too. If you prefer, you're welcome to unmute yourself and just ask your question. I'm very open to that as well. Okay, I have a couple questions coming in. Laura, I'm sorry, Ashley, project management professional. Yes, there's also one for project manager for development. Got it. Thank you. So that's the PMD Pro. Got it. Wonderful. Maria, how do you suggest approaching someone to be your mentor? Good point. I would say think about why you want them as your mentor. Like, what is it about them that you really appreciate, or you think would be really insightful? Whatever it might be. Maybe they've played a role in your past as a supervisor that's just, you really reflect back on all that how you grew from them and in that experience, and you'd really love to whatever. Or it might be you identify somebody in a new field, and trust me, they're going to feel they're going to feel honored that you're like, in looking ahead, I'm looking ahead at where I'm heading and where I'm looking to go, and I'm very interested in the international development field, particularly the evaluation, whatever, monitoring, evaluation, whatever it is, right? And I'm looking for somebody who might be able to serve as a mentor to me, to maybe provide a bit of guidance based on their own experience, and or tips and advice that maybe they've learned in their own path. And I really respect your work and what you've done, and I've enjoyed working with you in the whatever capacity. Wondering if you might be willing to serve in that capacity of mentor. And then they might say, sure, how much time are you looking? You're like, oh, certainly it'd be as available, but not envision it to be something, extremely, like every week or every whatever. So that's kind of some tips on how you might do that. Okay. Let's see, another question came in here, side question. I keep hearing that NCE can be extended past the 2-year limit due to special circumstances such as education, family, death, etc. How does one go about doing that? Okay. You are right. And actually, just to let you all know, we are going to be having it's a virtual federal career fair that is it's on January 28th. So it's like a couple weeks, 2 weeks from Thursday, I think it is, right? So it's coming fast. We are putting this together, and we've done the outreach to the employers and such, and the RPCV invites are out as well. You may have already seen it posted, but it will be posted on the different channels and such as well. But it is an opportunity to talk to different agencies about, and many of them will have NCE vacancies specifically that they're looking to hire, right? So the reason I say that is the answer to this question is it depends on the agency and their interpretation and their procedures. Because yes, you have that 1 year you have that 1 year of eligibility, and it's 1 year of eligibility that you have, not 2. Okay, you initially get 1 year, and then you can you can then have it, then it can be extended for up to 3 years, up to 2 additional years. Okay, for 3 reasons. 1, you go back to grad school full time, right? Enrolled full time, your summers don't count against you. That's very clear and crisp. 2, you go to the military full time working. That's very clear and crisp too. The third reason is the very nebulous, very, what does this mean? And that is for reasons, basically, it may be extended for reasons the hiring official deems warrant an extension. And there's like not a lot of information in there, right? Generally, this is when you have experience that maybe you've been engaged in. A classic example would be you're working as a park ranger, like contractor, right, or something, not federal employee, and your NCE expires while you're doing that, and then it was a seasonal one that you were working or whatever, and then they have, after yours is expired, they have they have a position, and they say, oh, but you were working as this same position or similar position or whatever, so that time that you were doing that doesn't count toward your, whatever, so we can extend it for that reason. Like, some will be more open to doing that and some will not. It really depends, depends on the agency. Now, a lot of them oftentimes aren't as prone to doing it, and here's why. Because they're generally, there are so many NCE candidates that they don't have to necessarily go through the rigmarole of, how am I going to do this? Can it happen? Trying to fight with their HR and make a case and bring you in when there are other people that don't have to have the extension. Does that make sense? Now, you all are in an interesting position because right now you are coming up on the end of your NCE. And although Peace Corps headquarters is apparently, from what I've heard, I've heard they are trying to make the case for extending it longer. But here's the thing: it takes an act of Congress to do that. It's not as simple as them just saying, "Oh, let's just make this whatever." So somehow with the legislation and all of that, so you need to be aware of that as well. But I would definitely recommend that you come to the career fair, and check with some of them to say, hey, does your agency ever do the third reason for the extension, i.e. for a reason that warrants extension in the eyes of the hiring agency. So you can kind of check on that as well. Okay, we are hoping to have, and I don't know that it'll happen, but we have tried to get OPM, someone from the Office of Personnel Management, somebody from their HR who could maybe speak a little more on that aspect, like maybe from their opinion, which would be great because they're kind of the overall. Many of the agencies follow their rules and regulations. Peace Corps agency is an accepted service agency, so it doesn't. It has different ones, but all of that is a different, a different webinar that we're getting into there. So, but Laura, if you have other questions on that, just give me a call. I mean, just send me an email and such too if you need additional assistance on that. Okay, so just jody@rpcv.org. Okay. All right, so I think it looks like you're welcome, Laura. Looks like we have come to the end. I think we've answered the questions that are there. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the recording off. I just want to say thank you to everyone for being here, and I look forward to you participating in the future. This Wednesday, we have a great event coming up with Jody Glickman. She's an RPCV and a coach, and she's got really good experiences about making your pitch and all of that, and really has wanted to give back to the RPCV community. So she will be here, and lots of good stuff. On Friday, I'm going to be talking about relocating in my webinar at noon, relocating for a job and how to go about doing that, how to put it on your resume, all those fun things. So stay tuned for any of those, and thanks so much for joining us, and make it a great day.